Bonsoir. Welcome to Cooking with Richard. I'm a French chef and I was born and raised in France from an Italian family. I got passionate about food because I was raised with my two grandmothers, one French and one Italian. And that's really something that brought me to cooking. I moved to San Francisco at the age of 25 and I opened up my first restaurant 29 years old, Baraka Restaurant, French Mediterranean style place. I also opened a Cooler Cafe that was a French restaurant with a little Californian twist. My second restaurant was a little bit more French with a Californian touch called Cooler Cafe. And then I joined my cousin and we actually worked at l'Osteria del Forno together for 15 years, and that's where I got really passionate about the North Italian cooking. 5 years ago I moved to Las Vegas and I opened Olala French Bistro, which is a classic French bistro outside the Strip. So tonight I'm going to present you an appetizer, an entree and a dessert for that show. As an appetizer we're going to start with a beautiful salad, something nice, refreshing. And it's going to be an endive salad with blue cheese, candied walnut and a little Italian dressing. The second dish is going to be the main course. We're going to do a mix and match of the two words, French and Italian. Prawn risotto with Israeli couscous. And to finish on the sweet note, I'm going to give you the good recipe of my beautiful chocolate mousse. Endive salad with blue cheese, candied walnut and Italian dressing. Bonjour, so today we're going to make a very good and a very classic salad, something that is actually very nice for the summer, very fresh, and also that looks very pretty. When your guests are going to come, they're going to love it. It's going to look a little bit like a flower. So today for that salad we're going to need some endives. I usually like the Belgian endives better, but you can work with the red endives, which are usually also very nice. Endives have this tendency to have a little bitterness and a little freshness that really I enjoyed. And with that salad we're going to join it with a little bit of blue cheese. I usually use blue cheese from France, you know, as my accent is French. I go for the French blue cheese. And we're also going to join it with a little bit of a candied walnut. The candied walnut is something that is going to bring a little sweetness to it. And it's going to be very nice and a little crunchy, and it's very summery. For the sauce, we're going to use a little bit of balsamic vinegar. Today I use a little balsamic vinegar that is lightly seasoned with peach, because we're getting into the summer. A nice, beautiful olive oil from Italy, a little salt, a little pepper. So to start the salad, we're going to start by taking our endives. What you want to do is you want to trim the edge, but just the edge. You don't want to cut too far. We're going to trim all those. The reason why it's very simple is because we're going to use a couple leaves for our decoration. So you pull out, and we're going to use that as a little decoration, and it's going to give us a little flower kind of things. So we're going to keep those aside. Then we're going to take the endive and you slice it in two, which is going to be easier for us to cut. Those endives are quite very nice. And slowly, what you want to do is you don't want to cut them too thick. You want to keep a little bit of thinness to it. First of all, it's going to be easier to eat, and then it's going to look a little nicer on the plate. Always look at what you do. You don't want to cut your fingers as well. And for one serving or two, actually with those endives, it's going to be about, that can feed about 2 people. So you chop them up, and as you can hear, they are nice and crunchy. That's going to give you a little bite to it, which is actually quite very important. And during the summer, it's very nice, it's very fresh, and it's something that is going to really impress your guest in terms of looking at the dish and in taste. Here we go. Since my bowl is not too big, I'm going to save those 2 for later. And I'm going to put my endives into it. So now that we have the endive that I already chopped, this is the blue cheese, Roquefort, what we call in France. It's a French blue cheese, has a little sweetness and a little bite to it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna sprinkle that in our salad, just little pieces. It's very simple and very fast. So it's a salad that you can even make, for a quick lunch or something like that in the summer. Also in the winter works very well. Then we have some walnuts. The walnuts are gonna bring a little sweetness to it, and I had them candied. Candied basically is you take a little bit of sugar, you make a little caramel, so medium heat, and you throw your walnuts into it, and you leave them for about 2 minutes. Then after you reserve, you let them dry, and you can cut them in pieces. And they're kind of a little candies, and they're nice and crunchy. So what you want to do is you take and you sprinkle them inside as you go. So I'm a sweet guy, so I like my salad to be a little bit more on the sweet side. Here we go. Et voilà. So this is our base for the salad. So now what we're going to do, we're going to slightly make a little toss to mix all the ingredients so all the flavors come together. Nice and mix. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take care of our little vinaigrette. Today I choose to go a little bit more on the Italian side. So I'm not making a regular vinaigrette, I'm making an Italian dressing. So we're going to use the balsamic vinegar that is actually flavored with a little bit of white peach, a good extra virgin olive oil from Italy. So you just drop your vinegar into it, then you drop your oil. The ratio I like to make is about 1 dose of vinegar for about 6 doses of extra virgin olive oil. I don't like the ratio 2 to 3, as for me it's a little too acidic. I like something that is a little bit more round in the mouth. And then a little bit of sea salt, touch of pepper, and we give it a little whisk. We are not looking for an emulsion, we are just looking for something that is going to mix together. That looks perfect. Here we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use our leaves that we kept, and we're going to build up a little kind of a flower thing. So you just put your leaves on the top, right there, and we're going to make it look like a little flower. And now, take our salad, grab a nice handful of it, put it right in the center of it. We have a nice little endive flower. And now, we'll take the balsamic vinegar and lightly sprinkle all around your salad. And what you want to do is you want a little bit go on the leaf as well. Nice and clean. And we have a beautiful endive, Roquefort, and candied walnut salad. So the second dish that we're going to do today is actually a little mix of the French and the Italian. We're going to do risotto, but we're not going to use rice, arroz rice, like we usually do in Italy. We're going to use Israeli couscous. Israeli couscous, it's like a little size, little bowls of couscous, but they have the same texture and the same quality than a pasta. And then we're going to use some prawns, usually U12 or 820, something that is nice and a little big. And we already have them deveined, shell off, because they are much easier to eat. And we're gonna mix that with a little jus, a little bouillon that is made out of prawns, bouillon, a little bit of piment d'Espelette, and extra virgin olive oil, something that has a nice flavor to it. And it's a dish that is quite very nice and easy to do, and is also something that you can make on the spot that is not too complicated to make. It doesn't have too many ingredients into it. So Israeli couscous, it's just like pasta basically. So what we're gonna do, It's gonna make some water to boil. Previously in my water I always put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. That usually helps the couscous nuts to stick together. And of course, just like pasta, we're gonna season our water with about a nice amount of sea salt. I like to use sea salt because coming from the south of France, it's a region where we have a lot of sea salt. And I like to use a little bit of pepper because, believe it or not, even when it boils, whatever you're gonna put into your water is gonna bring a lot of flavor into it. And I use a little special ingredient that is from the southwest of France as well. It's a little piment d'Espelette. Espelette is a small little village in the Basque Country, southwest of France, and it's gonna bring a little color to our couscous. On the other side, we have a little bit of, you find that in every stores. It's like a little powder that is flavored with prawn shells. So you just put a little bit of water, a little bit of these cubes, and inside I also put a little bit of piment d'Espelette as we did before, and a touch of paprika. The touch of paprika is going to bring some redness to the dish when we're going to cook the couscous into it. When we're going to reheat the couscous into it, when we're going to do our risotto. So basically we're going to wait until our water is ready to boil. When you start to see a little bit of ebullition, you have to wait that the water is completely boiling before you put your couscous. Always undercook your couscous 1 or 2 minutes and it's gonna make the deal. Like that, once you're gonna serve the dish, your couscous is gonna be nice, soft, but still a little al dente, like it's supposed to be, just like a pasta. So our water is just about to boil. It's coming to the point. We have the little bubble from the bottom coming to the top. And when you see on the side right there that you have your bubble, meaning your water is about 100 degrees Celsius, of course. I'm always confused with Fahrenheit. Here we go. Just 1 minute more. And here we go. And we drop our little bowl. That's going to be for one serving. One serving, you're looking at about half a cup of couscous per person. That should do the deal. And now, let it boil. Don't cover it. If you cover it, what is going to happen is your water is going to start boiling and you're going to make a big mess on your stove. And here we go for just about 8 minutes. That couscous is organic that I use, so it takes about 10 minutes to cook. I'm going to go for about 8 minutes shot. So we're reaching about 8 minutes, and one thing that I always like to do is always take one little bowl and taste it. What you're looking for is something a little hard in the middle, a little bit like a slightly uncooked rice. And we are just perfect right now. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna stop it and we're gonna drain it. So now that we drain our couscous, what I usually do is I always put a little bit of olive oil, personally, a little salt and little pepper at the bottom. That really helps, actually. It's a little trick that helps to season the couscous, and mostly like that it doesn't stick. So we're looking for about 1 person. I'm a little generous. There we go. And then what you do, once it's inside, just give it a little toss. The beauty of it is you already have your olive oil inside, your salt, your pepper. So basically your couscous is already seasoned. Let me test that. Oh la la, magnifique. Perfect consistency, still a little hard in the middle, nicely salted, nicely seasoned, and you can feel the olive oil. So now I'm going to actually use the same pan, a casserole. I'm going to give it just a little rinse. The reason why is when I cook at home, my wife also makes me do the dishes, so I like to use only one casserole for me. It's good enough. So basically what we're going to do now, we're going to start by doing our little risotto with Israeli couscous. So we take our couscous. You don't want to go with a high flame. You want to go really, really low, because your couscous is already cooked. And don't forget, we already put a little bit of olive oil, but you know what? We're just going to put a little bit more so it doesn't stick. And we're going to add our couscous. That's going to be perfect for that. And then we're gonna use the little bouillon, just a little of bouillon. That's what is gonna really help us to make this risotto nice and creamy. That's gonna bring the liquid into it. And right away, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put a nice little piece of butter. Like we say in France, butter is life. So you put a nice little piece of butter into it. And that's my little trick. What I like to do is I take a little bit of a zucchini that I chop thinly, and I'm gonna drop it inside. And as it's gonna cook, the zucchini are still gonna keep a little bit hard. They're still gonna be crunchy. That's gonna help you bring another texture to your couscous. And then as a seasoning, I'm using my special ingredient, the piment d'Espelette. That's gonna bring a little heat into it. And now I'm gonna take my spatula, and once my liquid into it, I'm gonna raise a little bit the fire, and then we're gonna start the emulsion. What we wanna do is to have the butter that is gonna mix with this bouillon that is full of flavor. It's tasting like prawns. It's tasting like the sea. So what it's gonna do is gonna give you a kind of a little creaminess to the thing. Here we go. I can raise a little bit the heat better. And what you wanna do, you wanna bring this bouillon back to a boil and nicely incorporate your butter into it. You don't wanna put too much butter either. You don't want the dish to be too greasy, because that's something that usually you can eat as well, since we're coming to summer when it's hot and nice. And you don't want to reduce completely as well your bouillon. You want to leave a little bit the liquid part into it. We're not going to use it all. When we're going to serve it, we're going to grab some of the couscous, but we're not going to use the entire part of the bouillon. The bouillon is just going to bring you a little bit of flavor, and it's going to flavor your risotto. Here we go. When you hear this little noise around, that's quite very nice. When it starts to boil, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add a little bit of a grated Parmesan cheese. That's what is gonna finish me the risotto into it. And also the cheese is gonna help absorb the liquid. So at this point, what you wanna do, you wanna reduce a little bit the heat, and you keep and you stir. And the butter, the cheese is gonna mix with this beautiful bouillon, and as you see, look at that. It's making like a little cream to it. Your risotto is perfect. Let me test that for you. Always very important. Double check your seasoning. It's hot. What I like is the creaminess that the cheese brings, and you still have the flavors of the prawns that you get from the bouillon, a little crunchiness from the zucchini. Oh la la. Magnifique. Beautiful. So now we're going to take this and we're going to set it aside, and we're going to take care of our prawns in 1 second. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take care of our prawns. First thing I like to do, I always season a little bit the prawns before. Salt, nice amount of pepper, and of course a little bit of the piment d'Espelette. The dish, you think it's going to be spicy, but the beauty about the Espelette pepper, it's a really mild pepper. That's going to bring you more smokiness than it. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that your pan is really nice and really heat up, and up we put a little bit of olive oil. We're going to keep it on a medium high, and right away we're going to put our prawns. And as you see, a lot of people, are cooking prawns the wrong way. Prawns are something that are very, very easy but very fast to cook. You don't want to cook too much your prawns. And usually prawns that size, I will not go for more than a minute and a half max per side. And as you see, right away you get a little colorish. I'm gonna add a little bit of olive oil around here, just to get the little crispiness that I want. And like I say, a prawn that size, yeah, Actually, they're actually quite even smaller than I thought. So what we're going to do, we're going to do about 50 seconds on each side. But one thing you want to do before you flip them is to really see the nice pink color that you get on the edge and a nice little caramelization on the back. That's when you know you can turn them. There we go. Beautiful. And one thing you really want at the end, it's when you take the prawn, you want to see a little bit of clear part in the middle of the meat of the prawn. You don't want the prawn to be nice and all white. The clear part is going to be like medium rare. And the prawn is going to be nice and moist. Most of the time people have the tendency to cook prawns for too long. And then it gets rubbery and chewy. Usually you can get the same texture than the scallops actually. You know, the scallops, you usually eat them medium rare, rare-ish. I like them medium rare. I don't like too much the scallops rare. And it's a nice sizzling. They get a nice color. We're going to use a little bit of a whiskey, so really be careful when you do that, because when the pan is hot, it's going to flame right away. Nearly. Up, and then you take your gas and here. And what you want to do, you're going to wait that there is no more flame. And what you want to do at this point, you cut your fire out, you take your garlic, you drop it inside. And then, nice little touch, a little bit of the bouillon again, and let it be. And that's how we're going to finish to cook it. As you see, it's nice, it's sizzling, and what it's going to do, if you keep your flame on, you're going to burn your garlic. And if you burn garlic, garlic burn gives you a bitter taste to it. And you want to keep them in a little bit of the juice inside as well, because the juice is going to be mixed a little bit with the whiskey, and that's going to bring you a nice kick into those prawns. And as you see, my prawns are nicely cooked on both sides, but when you look at the meat, right there, it's still white. And when we're going to cut them, you're still going to have a little clear part. And at this point, prawns are set up. Okay, so we actually reheat a little bit our risotto, so it's nice and warm. Didn't cool down, and it looks pretty nice. Allez. So as you see, the risotto is nice and creamy. Look at that. A little bit like a kind of an Alfredo kind of thing. And you're still nice and creamy. So basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this, put it in there, and oh, look at that. Parmesan melting. And you want to take a nice spoon of it, and it looks good on one of those plates where you have a little depth into it, because you can dig into it. Even if I'm a small guy, I'm pretty generous when it comes to that. And then I'm going to use my hands because they are clean, but just to make this look nice, what you do, you take the first one and you dip it right in the middle to give a little bit of volume, and we're going to take the other ones. Look at that. You do that for your first date night, guys, I can assure you, you're going to be looking good. And of course, nice and clean plate. A little Israeli couscous with a little bit of zucchini, a little bit of the jus of the prawns, and some beautiful prawns nicely cooked and flamed with a little bit of cognac. What can I say? Oh la la, bon appétit. And so, to finish our beautiful dinner tonight, you know, like we say in France, there is no dinner without dessert. That's why it's called breakfast. So tonight, to finish and to impress the lovely lady you invited or your friends you're receiving at home, we're going to make a very traditional chocolate mousse. So for the chocolate mousse, we're going to use about a little bit more than a pound of dark chocolate. I like to use 63% because it gives a little bitterness to it. And we're going to have 3/4 of a cup of butter. We're going to have half a cup of sugar, 2.5 egg yolks, 2 egg yolks usually, and actually 8 egg white. I like to keep the ratio from 1 egg yolk to 4 egg white. That's going to bring a little bit more fluffiness, and your mousse is not going to be very heavy. It's going to be like a little cloud to it. And of course, I use just a little touch of milk. So you can put skim milk. You can even put a little bit of coconut milk if you want to give an extra flavor to it. And it's going to help us to melt the chocolate. So what we're going to do, first of all, the little tricks is actually keep your egg white very cold. Once you're going to whisk them, they're going to be becoming nice and a little harder. Then if you keep them room temperature, they might drop down a little bit, and you might have a little bit of the egg white back into the thing. So first thing that we're going to do, basically, going to set us up. We're going to take our pound of chocolate. We're going to take some butter. And one thing that I like to do is I like to put the butter just a little bit around the side of the bowl. So when the chocolate is going to melt, it's going to avoid the chocolate to stick a little bit to the bowl. So you put a little bit on the side. Here we go. And the rest, the big part, right in the middle. And I usually use unsalted butter, of course. A little bit of the milk that we're going to put in it. And actually, my little trick, and it's something that is going to be really important, it's a little chef trick. You want to put about a nice pinch of sea salt inside your chocolate. What it does is actually emphasize the sugar inside the chocolate. And believe it or not, it's going to make the chocolate taste a little sweeter than the normal. So we're going to take that and we're going to go right away to the microwave. We're going to open our little microwave. We're going to stick this inside. And for the size we have right here, we should be just about 2 minutes. Now, one thing that we're going to do is we take our egg yolk, 2 egg yolk. For the egg yolk, it's always a little better to leave them room temperature. That's going to bring a little creaminess to it. They're going to be a little bit more like a cream. And then you drop your sugar. And the little trick, you take your whisk, and now you want to break them and you want to whisk them. But you have to whisk them very hard. I don't know if you can see that right now, but as you see, we whisk, the egg yolk is starting to turn white, a little whitish compared to the nice, beautiful yellow color we used to have. And that's exactly the consistency that you want to do. What it does, it's actually the sugar is actually cooking a little bit the egg yolk. And that's why they are turning white to it. And you want to come to this nice little paste right there, and that's good enough. Really perfect. We're going to keep this one on the side because we're going to need it in a little bit. In the meantime, we still have our chocolate that is melting, and then what we're going to do, and we're going to work on our egg whites. And what you really want at this point is to some nice egg whites. Always make sure you turn at the same time than the machine. Help the machine. Look at that. Looks like a cloud. And you don't want to stop until they are really nice and hard. And you see that they are done usually when they start to make those little stripes. Nice and hard. Here we go, it's coming together. Let me see what we have here. Oh yes, look at that. Look how good they look. They don't fall. That's some beautiful ones. There we go. And at this point, take a little spatula, and what we want to do, we want to mix it. And that's gonna give us a little bit like a little ganache style. But you really have to make sure that you really incorporate the butter with the chocolate until you get a nice little paste. You really have to work your chocolate properly and make sure that it cools down a little bit before you incorporate your egg whites. Chocolate is still a little warm. You get nicely to the edge and you want a nice silky texture. There we go, look at that. Smells fabulous. Fabulous. You see we got rid of those little grains right now. The chocolate is going down a little bit in temperature. And we have a nice, beautiful, silky texture. The smell is fabulous. Reminds me when my grandma used to do it for me. And I used to lick the bowl. Don't know if I can do that on TV though. So now we have our egg yolks and sugar, nicely white, our chocolate. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna incorporate our chocolate inside our egg yolks and sugar mixture. A lot of people think that it takes a long time, but it's actually a dessert that you can nail in about 20 minutes maximum. And it makes all the family happy. And of course, you can use dark chocolate, but if you're more like a white chocolate person, you can surely do it with white chocolate, milk chocolate. You can use some peanut butter chocolate chips and make a mousse with a peanut butter. This is an endless situation. And here we have our nice mixture. And as you see, it starts to be a little doughy. Eggs are really nicely incorporated with the chocolate. And you want to make sure that your mixture has pretty much the same color all the time. So now, what we have to do, it's a little trick. What you do, you're going to take 1/3 of those egg white, nice and hard, and you're going to incorporate them inside your mousse. You reserve the rest for a little later, and then you take your whisk. And now what you're going to do, you're going to whisk them very, very hard to really incorporate those egg whites. That's going to be a nice base. Because there's a little trick after for the mousse to be nice and fluffy, and I'm going to show you in a second what it is. Now we have a nice little paste. We want to get all the white inside. Here we go. And we are done with the whisk. And now that's the little technical part. So what you want to do, you take the rest of your egg whites, dip it inside, and then we're going to fold them. We're not going to whisk them. Basically, we're going to incorporate a little bit of air in the mousse. That's the little trick. And with that, you're going to get yourself a nice and fluffy mousse. So the technique is very simple. You go from the bottom to the top, you cover your egg white, and you turn. Bottom to the top, bottom to the top. You don't want to break your whites, because your whites, you want to keep them nice and fluffy. That's why it's called a mousse. It's going to be like a little nice and a little cloud. One. So this part takes a little time. That's the part because, you know, the first step is like 5 minutes. Now you have about 10 minutes, sometimes a little bit more, to nicely incorporate those egg whites with your chocolate. And one thing you want to make sure at the end is you don't have to have some part of white inside, otherwise once you're going to eat them, the texture is not going to feel right and you're not going to have the little chocolate bite to it. But as you see, our chocolate mousse is starting to get a nice whitish color, and you see how fluffy it is. Look at that. You know, now look at that. We did incorporate our egg whites nicely, and you look at this mousse. It's nice, has a nice little liquid texture. Of course, it's not what it's going to be as a finished product, One thing you have to understand is we're gonna have to put them about 1 hour and a half, 2 hours into the refrigerator, and then it's gonna get harder. And that's when you're gonna get this nice little fluffy texture, a little bit like a little cloud right there. But look, what is really, really important, what you really don't want to have is those little balls. When they come to the end, just break them slightly, but don't torture them. Here we go, and here you have a nice consistency. It's like a little cream, but once it's gonna cool down, it's gonna be a nice little cloud of chocolate, and it's gonna be pumping into your mouth. You know what, let me do something that I used to do with my grandma. Taste. That's beautiful. You can feel the chocolate, really, really intense, nice and fluffy. You have two different ways. I mean, either you leave it in your bowl, family style. You have your kids coming back from school. You did that a couple hours before, and then for a little snack, it's perfect. Otherwise, you know, for a date night, you can maybe use a little martini glass. And I don't know if you remember, you know, the little candied walnut we used for our little endive salad earlier on. Well, we're not going to waste. You know, 20 banana years in this business, I don't like to waste anything. I really don't like to waste anything, and not only because it's a waste of food, but it's also, you know, for the planet, for the concern, which is really important. I think we can change a lot of things as a chef right now by being smart and not wasting a lot of things. And then you take and you're gonna slightly fill it up, and what you're gonna do, you're gonna stop right at the middle. Up. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna use those candied walnuts. Why? We're gonna put them right a little bit in the middle, and it's gonna give us a little crunchiness to it. Here we go. And then, here we go again. Well, after you can also transfer that in a container that makes it easier for you to do it. Et voilà, magnifique. And this, right in the middle, you're gonna get a little bit of your walnut. So what we're gonna do, since we have some more left, I'm gonna make a little decoration. Just like you seasoning something, you just wanna sprinkle them on the top. Oh la la, can't wait to eat that one. And basically, this is done. Make a big deal out of a chocolate mousse. Well, take us about 15 minutes. So thank you very much for spending this little half hour together. As you see, those dishes were very nice, simple and easy to make. Can be good for a little date night if you want to impress somebody, but it also can be good for a family dinner. So basically, you can find my recipes on Oh La La French Bistro on Instagram and Facebook. Otherwise, you know, I see you next time on our show, and bonsoir, bon appétit, et ciao.